Well known in the community, friends of the man who was shot and killed allegedly by his foster son talk about his contributions to their lives. 2 dead. The small village of Shagaluk is mourning the loss of 2 people tonight, by residents there taking issue with emergency responders. And banding together why police chiefs of many Alaska communities say they will work together to stop the legalization of marijuana.
You're watching KTUU, Channel 2, Anchorage, Alaska's news source. And now, the 5 o'clock report with Mike Ross.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 5 o'clock report. It has been a deadly week with 4 people killed in 3 separate incidents across the state of Alaska. We start tonight with the first court appearance of a teenager accused of shooting and killing his foster father. 16-year-old Peter John Henry is charged as an adult with first-degree murder, coercion, theft, and tampering with physical evidence. Police say Henry shot his foster parent, Marvell Johnson, inside a residence on Island Drive yesterday. Now, during their questioning, APD detectives say they learned Henry was angry with his father for grounding him for using the synthetic drug called Spice. After shooting Johnson, police say Henry stole a wallet, iPad, watch, and cash from his foster dad, then tried to make it look like the killing happened during a robbery. During his court appearance, a judge set a bail at $500,000 today, plus a third-party custodian. We have a much more detailed article on Henry's charges on our website. Just go to KTUU.com. That article includes how he allegedly threatened to kill a juvenile if he didn't help Henry hide the murder weapon. Well, today, those who worked with Marvell Johnson at KSKA Radio shared their memories of a man who they say will be greatly missed. Channel 2's Mallory Peebles explains what Johnson did at the radio station and the plans to honor his memory. Mallory?
Well, Mike, those we spoke with described Marvell Johnson as a caring man with a heart to help others, evident by the many people he mentored at KSKA and the more than 100 foster kids he opened his home to. Johnson began volunteering at KSKA in the late 70s with an on-air show called Flight STS, or Soul to Soul. He played R&B, hip-hop, and reggae and took the time during each show to answer calls from listeners and dedicate songs for them. The state of Alaska confirms Johnson was a foster parent for more than 15 years. A neighbor said Johnson and his wife always took in teenage boys. Despite Johnston often working with troubled teens, his friend and colleague Reggie Ward says he never had concerns. Ward says Johnson always looked for the best in people.
I wouldn't be the DJ that I am today if I never had the opportunity to be under the wings of the great Marvell Johnson. I don't really know how else to say it. He was a great man.
Fellow coworkers will be volunteering their time this Saturday when Johnson's show Soul to Soul is scheduled to air, fielding calls from listeners and sharing memories about Johnson. The show starts at 10 p.m. on 91.1.
All right, thanks, Mallory. We've also learned this evening that 2 people in the Yukon-Koyukuk area in the village of Shagaluk were killed last night. Now, Shagaluk is a community on the Innoko River about 20 miles east of Anvik. According to the latest census, the village has fewer than 80 residents. The deaths were reported to Alaska State Troopers just after 9 o'clock last night. The family members confirmed the identities of the victims and the suspects to Channel 2 News. John Arrow and Flossie Simone were identified as the 2 people who were killed. Jarrett Arrow tells Channel 2's Blake Essick that his brother Everett is the one accused of killing his parents. Jarrett told us that John and Simone never married but were life partners and have 5 children together. Channel 2's Blake Essick is in Shagaluk tonight with the latest details.
Outraged, saddened, and shocked. Those are the emotions felt throughout the community here in Shagaluk, just one day after a young man is believed to have killed his parents. The incident took place around 9 p.m. Monday night. The principal of the Shagaluk school says locals were the first on scene. They provided medical attention to the wounded and apprehended the suspect. The 2 victims died while awaiting a medevac. Locals were able to restrain the suspect, monitoring him overnight at a city building until law enforcement arrived. Locals say the 2 people killed were both precious members of the community.
It was a huge, huge loss for this community, and it was, we just didn't know what to do. It was just tragic.
Troopers arrived here on scene just after 11 o'clock this morning to take the suspect into custody. In Shagaluk, I'm Blake Essig, Channel 2 News.
Now, earlier today, the Shagaluk City Council and the Shagaluk Native Tribe issued a statement saying the community was, quote, extremely outraged by the delayed trooper response, noting the community's lack of a local health aide or a village public safety officer. Alaska State Trooper spokesperson Megan Peters says troopers responded as fast as logistically possible. The statement goes on to say, quote, Shagaluk is and always has been a community that pulls together during hard times. We ask for prayers for the family, the siblings, the grandchildren, the extended family, and the Shagaluk residents. In the Mat-Su Valley, a man is accused of shooting and killing his own daughter. Troopers say they responded to a report of a shooting at a home on Mariah Drive off Wasilla Fishhook Road just after 11 o'clock last night. Troopers arrested 69-year-old Michael Wolverton on charges of murder and misconduct involving a weapon. According to troopers, Wolverton is a retired mechanic. Now, inside the home, troopers found his daughter, 47-year-old Shannon Wolverton, dead from an apparent gunshot wound. Wolverton was remanded to the Mat-Su pretrial facility pending arraignment. Court documents show that Wolverton's got into an argument about a man that Shannon was seeing. With only 27 days left until the November election, Alaska police chiefs from all across the state gathered to voice their concerns about ballot measure number 2. That's the initiative that would legalize commercial marijuana in Alaska. Corey Allen Young joins us now with what they had to say. Corey?
That's right, Mike. Although they represent different regions of the state and different populations, the combination of rural and urban police chiefs who are in attendance are all in agreement that legalizing marijuana will be bad for public safety. As part of the Alaska Association of Chiefs of Police, the group laid out its case this morning as part of a downtown press conference representing communities like Anchorage, Unalaska, Valdez, Kotzebue, Craig, and Nome. The chiefs say ballot measure 2, if passed, will make the job of public safety more difficult. Nome's police chief, John Papasadora, says there will be more marijuana-related regulations to enforce, more law enforcement costs for communities, and more dangers to be controlled. Extra pressures to serve and protect that will be done with limited staff. But not everyone in the public safety community agrees. Retired Department of Corrections Deputy Commissioner Bill Parker says passing the measure will actually help fight crime because right now the industry is underground, untaxed, and unregulated.
Unregulated marijuana and the black market that sets up is more harmful to Alaska than marijuana itself.
They don't have the discretionary time to enforce additional regulations. They don't have the additional time to enforce people smoking in public. I mean, quite frankly, that would be the lowest priority for us because, quite frankly, we don't have the personnel to do that.
So how would the measure, if passed, deal with rural communities that already ban or limit alcohol? Well, coming up in the news hour, hear what both sides have to say. Mike. All
right, thanks, Corey. Time now for a first check of the forecast. And Jackie, we're getting some reports of snow in East Anchorage. What are you hearing?
Well, we're hearing the same. We had a sunny start to our day, but with some clouds moving over the Anchorage area, reports of light flakes falling, yes, but not sticking just yet. You'll see more leaves falling around town, that's for sure. Here's our current temperature, 37 from Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. Winds out of the northeast at 7 miles per hour. Well, we can expect more clouds, but the sun will not disappear for us. North winds is more of what you'll be noticing as they hit anywhere from 5 to 20 miles per hour around town. So bundle up. I'll have all your forecasts coming up in a little bit.
All right, thanks, Jackie. We'll see you back in a few minutes. When we come back on the 5 o'clock report, prevention plan, how the president is changing procedures at 5 U.S. airports to try to stop the spread of Ebola. And in business news, the U.S. stock market surged to its biggest gain of the year, erasing a big loss from just yesterday. Here's a look at the closing numbers on Wall Street.
You're watching Channel 2 News, the 5 o'clock report with Mike Ross.
The first Ebola patient diagnosed here in the United States passed away at a Dallas hospital this morning. As the sad news came in, President Obama's Ebola plan was moving ahead, both in Africa and in this country, where airport screening for the disease begins in 3 days. NBC's Steve Handelsman reports.
The U.S. Ebola plan kicks into high gear Saturday at JFK. Soon after, at the other U.S. airports, where 94% of travelers from the African Ebola nations arrive in the U.S. Newark, Washington, Dulles, Atlanta, and O'Hare. CDC teams will screen passengers arriving from West Africa with the same kind of temperature check that travelers now get before they can depart. And the CDC says all the efforts in Africa are top priority.
That as long as Ebola continues to spread in Africa, we can't make the risk zero here. We wish we could.
In Africa is the rest of the U.S. plan. U.S. Marines are headed over with Ospreys and other transports in Phase 1.
And to just get us some air assets in the region.
Phase 2 will be U.S. boots on the ground. The Kentucky Air National Guard is going.
America is a place and a people that can be relied upon to help, and these guys are dying to do just that.
They'll get generators and incinerators and road building gear to the Ebola front lines, says President Obama.
In order to facilitate the transport of personnel and equipment and supplies to deal with this deadly epidemic and disease.
Intervention to fight Ebola in Africa and to keep it from here. I'm Steve Handelsman, NBC News, Washington.
The Pentagon says U.S. soldiers who go overseas will not need to use protective suits because they will not be in contact with Ebola patients. Back here in Alaska, a group that calls itself Veterans for Accountability wants answers and an apology from the governor over what it says was mismanagement of reports of sexual assaults within the Alaska National Guard. Channel 2's Grace Jang was at the group's first news conference today. Grace?
Well, Mike, the group says its formation at today's news conference is not politically motivated and denies working with any political party or candidate. Now, these veterans are all former members of the National Guard. Kevin McGee served in the Alaska Army National Guard, Shayna Kilcoyne served in the Wisconsin National Guard, and Bruce Doherty was a lieutenant colonel with the Alaska Air National Guard. Now, they say the recent focus on how sexual assaults in the National Guard were handled prompted them to informally band together. The veterans say the governor should have acted more quickly and punished the perpetrators right away. They also say the governor should not have awarded a high honor to a National Guard officer who the Defense Department says helped to cover up those sexual assaults.
But we're here trying to address this and bring this to people's attention because our hope is that people are held accountable and this does not happen again.
Agree with their concerns as we take steps to restore trust and confidence in the leadership of the Alaska National Guard. Now, concern over the military award was first made public back in early September when the Defense Department released its assessment of the Alaska National Guard. Back to you, Mike.
All right, thanks, Grace. Still ahead on the 5 o'clock report, show in the skies. If you missed the big lunar eclipse, we'll catch you up on what happened very early this morning. And snow is showing up in Jackie's forecast. She has details on how much we could see coming up after the break. The western Arctic caribou migration is a stunning part of nature here in Alaska, but it's also very important to those who live off the land. Elders say the Inupiaq have hunted the caribou for more than 11,000 years. It's a tradition that still goes on today. Now, the harvest of caribou is a way of life, and many traditions go along with it. These subsistence hunters will let the first group of the herd go by so others will follow. The declining herd population has forced many to travel more than 100 miles down the Kobuk River to hunt caribou. It's an expensive trip, but vital to feeding villages and families in northwest Alaska.
Just imagine in the environment that they grew up in and what they tried to do to provide food for their family. If they couldn't catch any caribou, then that's part of the starvation. But in order to prevent starvation, they had to work extra hard to making sure that they find a way to catch these resources.
Channel 2's Garrett Turner will have more coming up on the news hour at 6 as we continue our special report called The Kobuk River Valley at a Loss for Herds. Well, early birds or late night owls were treated to a stunning lunar eclipse at 2:25 this morning. The moon turned shades of orange and red in what is known as a blood moon. The color is a result from sunlight scattered off the Earth's atmosphere. During a lunar eclipse, the sun and moon are at exactly 180 degrees apart in the sky, with the Earth in between casting a shadow. Now, there was only a 9-minute window to see the full lunar eclipse, but we caught that for you on video, and it seems many people were up catching the eclipse this morning. Many of you shared photos with us, and keep them coming. To see the photo gallery, just go to our website, KTUU.com. Thankfully, our skies cooperated for the big show early this morning, but Jackie, the clouds have moved back in tonight, right?
Yes, we have seen some clouds spread across the Anchorage Bowl area, even some reports of some snowflakes, but they're fairly light and they are not accumulating. I don't know if that's good news. You'll notice more leaves falling than snow around town, at least for the next 24 hours. We have cloud cover moving across the Midtown area, and our temperatures have been appropriately cooler. Let's take a look around the Anchorage Bowl, and as we see, temperatures are into the 30s in a number of locations. The Campbell Creek Science Center, 33 here over the last hour. Same from the Muldoon area, and you could see temperatures again hit the teens for your overnight lows. It's going to be a chilly one yet again. Here's a look at the headlines, and we are seeing a storm approach into the Gulf of Alaska, and that could spread some rain or a rain-snow mix into many areas. And for the Aleutians, some strong northerly winds, which could gust up to 60 miles per hour. It's a result of this storm system that is sweeping east. It'll eventually turn north, but we can already see some of that frontal system affecting some sections of the Bristol Bay coast. That's probably where it will remain, but much of the rest of the west coast should see clear skies. We have even some cloud cover and hints of snow into the interior, as you can see for Fairbanks. It's been onshore flow for much of the southeastern portion of the state, so showers, but this will quickly turn to rain, and it could be heavy at times as we get into tomorrow. Here's a look at your current temperatures across the state. We have 38 degrees in Nome, just above freezing in Bethel, and below freezing right now in Fairbanks with 28 degrees, 27 farther north into Barrow, and across much of the southeast portion of the state, the temperatures hold into the 40s, but it's 52 in the last hour at Ketchikan. Across the south central area, 39 degrees for Talkeetna, and we'll see these 30s persist for daytime highs. You'll be lucky if you get into the 40s. Homer's right now at 42. So here it is, the approach of that storm system front moving with it. Continues to swing to the north and east, and you can see where those heavier showers and rain are expected to hit along the North Gulf Coast and into the Panhandle. Well, our forecast, at least for the northern sections, you should still see some partly sunny skies, but it's into Homer and the southern areas of the Kenai Peninsula that sees the higher chance of precipitation there, into Soldotna and also Whittier. As far as the evening forecast, isolated snow showers are possible with lows to 24. And for tomorrow, we're up to 39 degrees with a mix of clouds and rain snow showers. Here's a look at your 3-day outlook, and as we said, more change coming our way. Rain is expected on Friday. We'll still hit the low 40s here locally in the next 7 days. We also have a chance of that rain snow moving in as we hit later in the weekend, mostly on Sunday. We'll have more on the forecast, of course, coming up at 6 o'clock for you once again.
All right, Jackie, see you then. And Kari, big rivalry for UAA volleyball, right?
Yep, UAA hosting UAF this weekend at the new Alaska Airlines Sports Center. We've got a preview coming up next.
And now, from Alaska's sports leader, here's Kari Bustamante.
Bitter rivals and polar opposites. This weekend, UAA volleyball concludes the first half of GNAC play, hosting UAF for a Saturday matinee. Historically, UAA leads UAF 62-34 all-time. Seawolves 35-12 when in Anchorage. UAA is currently in the hunt for a league title. The green and gold sit atop the GNAC standings with a 7-1 conference record, 13-3 overall. As for the Nanooks, they're currently riding a 2-game win streak, and that would be impressive if it wasn't preceded by 14 straight losses. Despite the record, the Seawolves still feel there's work to be done.
At times we're a team that's hitting 400, 500, but then the very next game we're down to 150. So we just need to be a little more consistent offensively.
We all talk to each other, we communicate really well. Of course, no team's perfect and we all make mistakes sometimes, but we definitely all know when to come together, and if someone's struggling, we know that the rest of the 5 of us on the court have to pick up for their slack if they're struggling.
The Cook Inlet All-Conference teams announced today 3 coaches sharing the Coach of the Year honors this season, from Bartlett, John Jessen and Daniel Esparza, and also Tim Davis from West. Earning Offensive Player of the Year, South's Justice Agafa. The running back has over 900 yards and 15 touchdowns on offense. And the CIC Defensive Player of the Year goes to Bartlett's Archie Leimana. On the ice last night, the Aces fell 3-1 to the Fuel in Game 1 of their Paint the Rink Pink series, scoring the lone goal for AK newcomer Chris Francis. In net for Alaska, Aaron Crandall stopped 20 of 21 shots faced, and Andy Isles accounted for 10 saves on 12 shots. The teams return to the ice tonight for the series conclusion. That's 7 p.m. at the Sullivan Arena. We'll have highlights at 10. And the Giants stamped their ticket to the NLCS last night, defeating the Nationals 3-2. Ryan Vogelsong combined with 4 relievers to hold the Nats to just 4 hits. The Giants have now won their last 7 straight postseason series. The NLCS begins Saturday in St. Louis with the Giants visiting the Cardinals.
It's a great feeling, and to be able to do it at home and take the journey that we took. There was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of pulling every last bit. A lot of will, and collective effort from the fans, from the players, from the management, and it's a great feeling and an honor.
And the Giants have been to the NLCS 2 times in the past 3 years, so good team. Yeah.
Love baseball playoff seasons. Great. All right, thanks, Kari. Coming up after the break, we'll tell you about a unique cooking competition that has a big prize for the Alaska winner. Finally at 5 o'clock, seeing who is the top chef in Alaska.
Let's go ahead and bring out the mystery ingredient baskets for the 4 chefs.
In this week's Alaska Bites, we attended the annual Great Alaska Seafood Competition. 4 chefs had an hour to whip up a delicious meal using 3 secret ingredients. Now, those ingredients were unveiled just moments before they had to start cooking. Travis Haugen was one of the 4 chefs and tells us the winner of this competition gets bragging rights and a big prize.
You win the respect and admiration of all of your peers, but also a trip to Las Vegas to compete in the World Food Championship.
Now see the competition from start to finish and how Travis does in tonight's Alaska Bites segment coming up on the Channel 2 News Hour. Thanks for tuning in to the 5 o'clock report. Much more coming up in 30 minutes on the News Hour. Stay tuned now for NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams coming up next right here on Channel 2, and we'll see you back in 30 minutes.